I want to hire people that want to be there. I want people to be excited about their jobs. And, being in hospitality, I know that it's not a forever job for a lot of people, but for a lot of people it is. And the people that really take it seriously, I want them to have the best experience possible. But for the people that are, passing through the industry where it's like, it's a part-time job or it's this or it's this, I want them to have the best experience they have. Because if we teach them how to be really hospitable, they are going to be the best in their job, no matter what it is.
At MBA Chartered Professional Accountants, we have 3 core beliefs. 1, we believe that business owners are the most important people on the planet. 2, we believe that the traditional accounting firm business model is flawed and fails to serve you. And 3, we believe the MBA way gives you what you truly want and deserve, resources and advice that helps you grow your business and your life. This is the MBA Way podcast. Hi, everybody. It's Eric Solbach, and welcome back to this edition of the MBA Way podcast. This week, I'm excited to interview Derrick. And Ross and we've met a couple times, so there's going to be a lot more exploration on my part to find out a little bit more about his past history. But the one thing that's really exciting right now is he's just opened up Derrick's Steakhouse in Kelowna. It's fantastic. If you haven't been there, you should go. I did a little bit of research on the background, and the man's humble because I tell you, I looked it up and he's in the BC Restaurant Hall of Fame. He was in the 40 under 40. He's been a serial entrepreneur. Him and I hit it off like a house on fire. The first time we met each other, we started talking all things entrepreneurialism. So that's what I'm really excited about. He owns Globe Cafe and like Derrick's Steakhouse and probably some other things I don't even know about. He'll tell me later in the interview. Anyways, Ross, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Excited to chat about some really fun things today.
Awesome. We were having a little bit of fun here just before we got the podcast started. We were having some technical difficulties and we're trying to get everything done up. So if anybody's watching this on YouTube right now, you might notice that it's an up and down because we ended up having to go to the iPhone. So the wonderful thing about technology is when it works, it's fantastic. When it doesn't, it's a total pain in the ass. But we managed to work around it. And I'm really impressed how you managed to just problem solve super quick. And you just got your iPhone out and you got your stand and popped it in front of me. That was the true sign of an entrepreneur. You get hit you hit a wall and instantly you got to find a solution.
Yeah, I would happen to, I agree with that. Everything is, there's curveballs every day and I don't really ever see them as curveballs. We just have to fix it as soon as we can. So that's what we do.
Yeah, isn't that like, if you were to look at it, the job of the entrepreneur, especially the owner entrepreneur, is constant problem solving.
Yeah.
It's a constant stream.
Exactly what it is. I mean, right now we have 4 operational kitchens. So we have Globe, we have Derrick's Steakhouse, we also have a place called Broken Anchor, and then we have our catering kitchens in West Kelowna. And if I wake up, if I don't have a phone call till about noon in the day, I get really worried because it doesn't seem right. It has happened a few times recently, which have been very wonderful mornings. But most mornings it's a small problem here or there, or just something that I need to touch on. But I also don't get stressed by it. I just find it as like the fun part of my morning. So
see, that makes the entrepreneur such a different beast than the rest of the humans on the planet. And the entrepreneurs are a very, very small percentage of the planet. I've seen a couple studies where it shows, entrepreneurs make up 2% of the population or something like that, or I think it to be even smaller than that. And I think a big chunk of those are business owners as opposed to, say, entrepreneurs. Like I really feel there's a difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur, right? And so, and that's one of the things that I really kind of wanted to dive in with you is the idea of, Derrick's Steakhouse. You brought this to Kelowna because it's something new and fresh, and it's what is it? 1950s steakhouse with a modern flair. It's something that you saw that the city needed, and you've provided that. So that's creating some new value in the world. Other people, like you say, business owners, they own a business and they just They just run that business. But you seem to be like a serial entrepreneur. You're always looking for that next thing to look at. What are we going to grow? How do we create more value in the world? And so I really want to find out how did you get started? Let's go. Like I do this with most of my podcast guests. I go to the back and I want to find out what happened to create Ross? Like, well, what's your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, the reality is, so I always did a few things to make kind of money on the side. So I had my side hustles, and I had my side hustles for well over a decade, where I would do small caterings, or I would do, little events here and there. But the reality of me becoming an entrepreneur was not really my choice. I've talked to a few other people, some fantastic chefs, and one of my mentors said to me, I only opened up my restaurant because I couldn't get a job at IGA. And then he ended up having a multi-million-dollar restaurant group. And the reality with me is it's pretty much the same. I got divorced 11 years ago now.
Congratulations, by the way. Congratulations, by the way. I've got the same T-shirt. I'm divorced and I was a single dad as well. And I always say congratulations to people because they look at me funny. And I'm like, no, because it wasn't working. So now it is working. No.
And you know what? And well, even with that, the relationship with my ex-wife and me are fantastic, and we get to raise our daughter and create a lot of really cool experiences for her. So we're a happily divorced family, in the best of ways, where our daughter gets the benefits of it. But during that process, when I was divorced, I was running. I was management for the kitchen at a nearby hotel. But there was no executive chefs. And when I inquired about maybe me becoming the executive chef, I was told, no, you're never going to be the executive chef here. It's the most important property in our portfolio. I was like, oh, okay. So here I am. There was no executive chef. I had no boss, but I wasn't allowed to become the next step up in my kind of journey there. So they pretty much they said I was too young. I was 27, 28 at the time. So they said, oh yeah, you're not going to get promoted. So I was like, okay, well, why am I going to stay at a place if I'm being told I'm not going to be promoted? And then my friend John, who owns Cod Father Seafood Market, he had kind of said, hey, there's the restaurant space coming up. I was like, okay. He had sublet that for a number of years. And when I was kind of looking back and forth, I wasn't going to get promoted in the job I was at, but it also wasn't paying me enough to really support my life. And I wasn't able to have time to go see my daughter. So the working hours were really forced upon me. And I think that it kind of came to a head. It was like Canada Day 2014. And, I couldn't get the day off for the life of me. I couldn't have, a babysitter for the life of me, because you definitely can't find a babysitter for July 1st. And I just realized that if I kept working at the hotel, that I just would never get to a place of happiness. So knowing that, and then John had kind of whispered in my ear that his tenant was leaving, I kind of put together a plan to open up what became Broken Anchor. For a number of years, it was called The Table at Godfather's. And John kind of forced me into it because he gave me no rent for about 6 months. Said he would actually give me a job with a small salary so that I could actually pay my mortgage for the first few months, and then I can invest whatever money I had left, which was very little. It was $7,000. But with that, we were able to buy kitchen equipment, buy new fridges, buy used deep fryers, buy chairs from a place called Lois Lane in Kelowna, which is an antique dealer. And she had a bunch of old school chairs, which were really cool. And actually, Rod Butters, who owned Rod's, which is the restaurant 10 years later I purchased, he actually gave me for free tabletops. So now all my restaurants have a bit of the Rod's building in them, because I've kind of moved stuff around after I purchased the assets of Rod's. So my first restaurant had the tables that Rod needed for free. Then I bought the assets of Rod's and created Derrick Steakhouse. And I took some of the bar and actually moved some of the bar up to my other restaurant, Globe, as we refurbished that. So all three restaurants have a bit of the assets of Rod's. But yeah, initially it was, I needed more money. I wanted to see my kid, and I opened up a small little restaurant, and it was probably the most perfect situation for me, because I was open from 11 till 3 for the first 3 years. As much as that annoyed customers wanted me to be open later. So we opened Fridays until 6 initially. And then finally we actually got open till about 7:30, which every once in a while I still get yelled at for closing early, but we built our whole business around family. So a lot of our staff at that location, they work 4-hour days, they work 10 hours, they start at 10:30 and work to a maximum of 8:30, but usually leave around 8. So then, they can go home, they can see their family, they can still have dinner, albeit a little bit late, but they're also only working 4 days a week instead of the standard 5. So
yeah, that's so cool. I had no idea about all that. Now, again, that's why I was really excited to kind of get into this, because it's like I get surprised. I knew you were going to have some surprises for me, because I was like, there's more story back here. I didn't realize that was it. That's a fantastic. I love that. What I was thinking about when you were talking was, you weren't necessarily looking to be an entrepreneur. You were forced to be an entrepreneur. The universe pushed you to become an entrepreneur. All the forces around you, the divorce of your daughter and the not getting the right hours and not being able to see her. And finally, it was like everything was squeezing you to push you down a lane to become an entrepreneur and to become the successful entrepreneur that you are today, so that you could have your 4 freedoms. My business coach, Dan Sullivan, talks about 4 freedoms. It calls money freedom, right? Relationship freedom. You get to work with whoever you want, and time freedom, and purpose. So there's 4 things: money, relationships, time, and purpose. And I love that when you just shared all of that, it hit every one of those things. Like, it hit every one of those 4 freedoms. And so your entrepreneurial journey was, the universe conspired against Ross to make him into an entrepreneur. And you did it.
Yeah, it was definitely a conspiracy for sure. And I'm happy that it happened. I don't know if every once in a while I'll go take a subcontracting job. So I've done a little bit of work at the college, and I always kind of think about, maybe it might be nice to work a 9 to 5. And while I love doing subcontracting for 6 weeks, maybe at a time, I don't think I'll be working for anybody at any point in my life. So
that reminds me of when I had my first accounting practice. I was a partner in a firm, and then that partnership broke up, and then I went to go and try and find a new calling. It's just something new to do. And I kept talking to other people, and then I realized something as I was doing that. I went, I'm actually unemployable now. So you're actually unemployable, because once you've got a taste of entrepreneurship and the freedom that you have there and the ability to create the value you want to, all of a sudden you become unemployable.
Could be. Well, I also think at the other point of it, I would never call myself like really great at anything. I think I'm good at a lot of things, and I also lean on my employees that are experts at certain things, and I let them be the experts, and I let them be the one that trains the staff, and I let them really own it. And kind of from my working years in kind of corporations and large companies, I just realized that a lot of people like to put their own mark on things, where managers would almost take away the creativity from employees to would actually create a really mediocre business. Where my method has been to listen to people who are experts. You very simply, even how we roll our napkins with our cutlery. We have one employee that had a really good method to make sure that nothing flew all over the place, that didn't sound clinky when you're moving them. Because sometimes a lot of restaurants, they just put the 3 pieces of cutlery together and then it sound, you can hear it moving. And she's like, "Oh, this is how I do it, so you can't hear it." And it's just this small little bit of elegance where if it wasn't done, you notice that it was done, but because it's done, you have no idea that work has been put into it. But that is kind of what's really important about the restaurant industry. Is a lot of the things that are really good about restaurants are things that you shouldn't notice, because if you're noticing it, that would have been the mistake, right? So we really work to how you don't notice a lot of what happens around you in a restaurant. So you don't hear a lot, and you don't hear certain things, you don't see certain things, and that's what makes it important. It's because if you saw it, that would be great. And yeah, so that was a great contribution she made, and we changed all over in every single restaurant. Oh, this is how we do this now, because it makes more sense. And I just found that when I worked at other places, it always had to be the my way or the highway. And I just don't fall into that kind of style of management. So
that's brilliant. So you're actually allowing each one of your employees to act like an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of them, you're giving them, it's like, what was it? Steve Jobs said that. Why would I hire? It was Steve Jobs, or maybe it was Steve Jobs. Why would I hire smart people to then turn around and tell them what to do? Like, why would you hire someone who's really brilliant at what they do and they're an expert, and then you tell them what to do? That doesn't make any sense, right?
It doesn't make any sense at all.
No. And so, like, for our listeners out there and their businesses, and they're having a hard time getting their staff to do what they want them to do, perhaps you need to start letting them have more freedom to create value and getting them see through the eyes of being an entrepreneur. And actually, those are one of the values that we have at MBA CPA, is that we think and act like business owners. We think and act like entrepreneurs. Like, so that's the thing, is like, if we're constantly thinking like an entrepreneur, I put myself in your shoes and instantly I'm like, okay, what would I want? What's the value that I really want as an entrepreneur? And so that we're on the same playing field, because we have a business, believe it or not, accounting firms are businesses. They're like, we're entrepreneurs as well, right? But they most don't think that way. I just love the fact that you do that. You get their smart people, you put them in their spots, you let them be creative. And I've got this saying that's, and I was looking up to my left here for those who are listening, or those who are watching saw me look up to the left. Those who are listening didn't see that. I've got a sign up there, and it says, "Creativity is intelligence having fun." And just, as another plug, when you had your open house there for Derrick's, I happened to be in town, and I was so happy to be there and come to the open house that you had. I see the way everything was done. It's like there's this creative energy that's in the steakhouse. It's there. And all the employees, by the way, that I talked to were so excited to be there. They were so excited, and Nick, you could feel it on them. They were like, this is amazing to be here and to be part of this. So you're doing it right. It's fantastic.
Well, that opening day it was interesting. Some people, we were very tight-lipped about it, actually. And if I had my way, nobody would have known the day that we opened. That was my actual back-end goal. Because I didn't really want to make it too big of a deal. I just wanted to kind of open up and be like, oh, wow, this day, and then it kind of got traction. But during the process, we signed the lease, I think, on the 14th of May. I got keys on the 15th of May, and we're open by the 21st of June. And some people were really shocked how that happened. And there's a few things. One, we had all of our contractors, our wallpaper guy, his name's Steve Noon. He is the best person at wallpaper in, I would say, Canada, if not North America. And I do know that a lot of the nicest houses in the world are in North America are using him. He also happens to be a great friend of mine for the last 18 years. So he was right on it. He actually pushed off a couple of mansions to do my restaurant on Saturdays and Sundays, so that he was like, oh, I'm not going to go to Victoria this weekend. I'll stay in Kelowna, and I'll do your room, which is lovely. We use Fibernew, Steve over at Fibernew, and I think you've actually met Steve as well.
He's a podcast guest. He was on the podcast. He's awesome. Steve's great.
Him and I, I think I brought like 15 seat cushions to him. Like, hey, I want this done. The first time I met him, and he was just like, okay. And he treated me with like a lot of respect. He did the job quickly. He understood that I needed it done over a weekend so that I could be back in business, put those seats right back on the chairs. And he was smart because he ended up, of course, now he's the only guy I'll use in all my restaurants as we move forward. But he came from kind of just being treated well for doing like a really small, like I think the bill was like $190 or $200. It was such a small bill, the first bill. But he still made sure that it was done like on priority. And now I don't think I'll ever see a bill that small from him again, but that's okay. But we had a bunch of booths to be done and a bunch of chairs to be redone. And it was a big project. It was 5 days worth of work for his team. And, he comes and he's like, when you open it like this day, he's like, okay, all the leather's ordered. He made sure that we chose fabric that worked really well. And he moved really quickly. Chris Brown from CM Renovations, he's like a great handyman. He actually did work with me when he was, 26 years old on my first restaurant. And now he has a nice little business. And, he, of course, because he knew that if I called him and he does it well, he gets the job. He doesn't have to, like, if I call him and he'll fit me in because he just gets the work from me and he knows that I'm insane and will keep on opening up more spaces and having more jobs. So, I'd love to see the balance book at the end of the day with me and him, because I think it's been over a decade of him and I working together. But all those guys jumped in really quickly because we'd had past relationships and we treated each other well. And that was how we moved so quickly. And that also, I wasn't even telling people for the first few days. And then all these guys were telling people and everybody was excited. And then, people that used to work for me started getting excited. And all of a sudden we had this little buzz around us where I realized I needed to hire like a social media manager and a few other things, because this small little steakhouse that I wanted to open up quietly, wasn't going to be allowed to be quiet. So again, I was forced as an entrepreneur to kind of make it a bit bigger, where we still followed everything I wanted to do, where we just brought what I like to call like old school hospitality back and treated people how I like to be treated at restaurants and create a little bit of a show. But that really resonated with all the staff that we were hiring, where I said, we're going to do tableside Caesars. And they're like, what? And they've never done it before. Like, I've never even seen that before. And I'm like, well, you're right. Because if you're a young person in hospitality, like let's say under 30, that hasn't existed in the last, 15 years. And especially since COVID got everybody really scared, where we completely forgot how to serve people and completely forgot about the theatrics of dining. So when we have these younger workers that have maybe been in the industry for 4 to 5 years, they haven't seen the best and most fun parts of the industry, because it was was forced to be changed. And now I'm kind of like, well, let's change it back. Let's make it fun. Let's do tableside. Let's be creative. Let's be there for the guests, and let's really show off. So
I love it. As you were explaining how you were trying to be quiet on the launch, on the opening, again, the universe conspired against you, which conspired for you, but against what you were trying, right? Like it conspired to make it go boom, right? And I love seeing that and hearing about that, is how all the pieces start coming together and the right people. And it's all based on relationships. I think this is a big thread that's missing right now, as a result of all the technology that we've created. So as humans, we've created this amazing technical infrastructure where we can actually do business without ever talking to a person, without ever communicate. So it's all, digital and social media, and you just never talk to people one-on-one. But everything that happens in what your business is built around relationships. It's the relationships that you wanted to have with your daughter that got you to go and start being an entrepreneur in the first place. You wanted to have that relationship with her. And then you went and started the businesses, but you didn't open them late because you wanted your employees to have a relationship with their families. Mm-hmm. And then you wanted the employees also to have a relationship with the customer and create more value, to treat them like entrepreneurs. Because like, you and I know, like, we're entrepreneurs, we're so focused on creating value for the customer. It's always about that relationship. So, but now you've got your team employed in the relationship building. And then you went to open up Derrick's, and it's because of the relationship you had built with everybody else that made it open so quick. And also the explosion of the buzz in town was because everybody was so excited because it was all a relationship. So technology is fantastic. And when you use it as a tool, it's fantastic. But that connection and that relationship, that's the absolute glue that binds everything, and it makes it worthwhile. Like, having the conversation with your staff that night at the opening was energizing, to be in that room and just to hear the passion they had about the food and what they got to do and how excited they were about the food, and to be there. It's infectious. And then no wonder it buzzed up, right? Everybody wants connection, and we're social beings. So, man, you've got this. So here's my question. I'm seeing this secret formula that you have, right? If this was an infomercial, I'd be going, listen now to hear Ross's secret formula on how to be successful. But how did you come into knowing how to operate this way?
I think as a person that runs business, I have always maybe been a bit more empathetic than I should be. Years ago, I worked for a hotel chain, and they said, like, lead by your heart, and or something. And I was like, okay. And I thought about that a lot of times, and I frankly, I follow my gut a lot. I really try to believe in the best in people, with anybody that I work with. And the flip side of that is when they, if on the rare occasion I've been maybe not treated as I would have liked, whether it be with a contractor or with anybody else, it's a wrath you maybe don't want to experience. So I highly suggest that you don't get on the wrong side of it. And it's been well known where, like, one of my staff members, not even a staff, sorry, he's been my chef for a number of years. And his comment he made, he was like, Ross told me once he was very disappointed about a decision I made on the phone, and that scared me enough to never want to do it again. Where I didn't yell, I didn't scream, I'm really disappointed in that decision. Like, that was a really bad decision. And he was like, oh shit, like, that's like almost as mad as he actually could see me. But that came to be because I am generally very positive speaking. I really let people try to understand that I am there to create an experience with them. And over the course of time, they realize that if they're not getting that response from me, I'm probably not in a great mood. But they're never going to necessarily see it. And then if you're maybe somebody I do business with and you haven't fulfilled, or you give me poor quality product, it's pretty much the same, where I just ask you, why should I be doing business with you if you're not going to be, treating that relationship with respect? And it pretty much gets people to understand the point quickly. But I do believe in the best in people right across the board. And every hire I make, I've had managers say, well, this guy doesn't have any experience. And I'm like, yeah, so? And well, he doesn't know this. I'm like, yeah, so? But I've hired them because of their attitude. And then, a month later, we're like, the first week, they're, oh, this guy's really slow, or you can't really do this well. I said, okay, well, let's teach them. And then they kind of get into that. And then, a couple months later, like, oh, he's our best employee. He's so good. And I'm like, yeah, he is. Why? Because he was always our best employee, because he came in with the best attitude. And we just had to teach him a few things. And I've had that happen more than once, because I do believe in the best in people. If I think somebody wants to do a good job, and I think somebody wants to make a difference, I think somebody wants to do that. And a lot of people say it in their interview, but a lot of it you can look right through their eyes and realize they're not really, there. And I want to hire people that want to be there. I want people to be excited about their jobs. And, being in hospitality, I know that it's not a forever job for a lot of people, but for a lot of people it is. And the people that really take it seriously, I want them to have the best experience possible. But for the people that are, passing through the industry where it's like, it's a part-time job or it's this or it's this, I want them to have the best experience they have, because if we teach them how to be really hospitable, they are going to be the best in their job, no matter what it is. Even, I've had forensic scientists. I've had lawyers, like we call them like the people that have left. So they become forensic scientists, they become doctors, they become lawyers, accountants, all these. And they're so hospitable that when you talk to them, 5, 8, 10 years later, they say, "Oh, thank you so much. Like, I loved working there. I loved working with you." And they come and they have a great dinner. They spend lots of money, and then they're just so grateful. They're like, that taught me so much, because they learned that hospitality isn't just restaurants and it's not hotels. There's hospitality in being a doctor. There's hospitality in being an accountant. There's hospitality in being, working in laboratories, because it teaches you how to really work with your clients and work with the people that are your direct reports. And if you're really good at it, it makes your life really easy, because people feel as they should, respected and cared for. And that's what we've kind of built the whole business on. And of course, sometimes it fails, and I feel like I've been completely railroaded by some people, but I just don't let that bother me. So,
wow, there's so much I could unpack in that. Just as a side note, myself and my wife Erin, we both were servers in restaurants, and so we learned how to do to interact, and we both became chartered accountants later on, and so I understand that, because you learn so much by interacting with the public that way. You learn how to empathize with people and get them what they want. And I think, when you're coming up to the table and saying, what would you like for dinner? You're very curious, and you're like, and they say, well, if they may ask you a question, I'm like, well, what do you kind of like? You like this or that? You're always constantly looking for what they want. I think that trains you to be an entrepreneur, always looking at the customer saying, well, what do they really want? What do they want for service? Right. And if they're like, oh, well, I really want pizza, and we're not a pizza place, then I'll be like, well, you really don't want to have the pizza here. You want to go pizza. You want to go over there. Right. You want to have but if you want to be here, we have this. Right. And so, I totally understand that. Like that, I learned so much being in that. One of the things you did say though, and just from the bit that I know you and I've seen you and I've watched you operating with your team, because like, again, when I went to the open house, I'm always watching and I see how you're interacting with the team and how they want to be. I think you saying that to your employee, that you were disappointed with the decision, I think they weren't so much scared of what you said, as opposed to they felt bad that they disappointed you. Like, because I think one of the things is, as a parent, if you tell your child, I'm really disappointed in you, that can actually be more crushing to say that I'm angry with you or you did this wrong. And you know what I mean? Because you've got such a strong empathy, and you're a beautiful entrepreneur. Do you know what I mean? Because you care about people, and your employees know that you care. And so they then care about you. So then if they disappoint you, they feel like they've let you down.
Yeah, I would say, in a way, but yeah, I think that's probably the best way to put that. It seems, maybe a bit more parental, but it is at the same time, like, I think, being in kind of the industry that I am, is like, there is a bit of a parental component to it, because we are seeing, I think what people don't realize sometimes about restaurants is that, like, we are seeing people grow up more than you think. You might hire somebody to dishwasher at 17 years old or 15 years old, and then they work with you through their end year of high school and into college and university. And then, I get invited to their weddings as the years go on. But you kind of see them every day, and you teach them every day, and as silly as it is, it's you teach them sometimes, honestly, even how to dress, like how to wear, how to present yourself. And One of my lines years ago when I was a manager, when I ran kitchens, I was not super strict. I think I learned as a young manager, I was terrible. I was loud and obnoxious and really rule focused. And then as I got a little bit older, I realized it wasn't necessarily the way. But one of the funniest lines I had with one employee is he was walking around the corridor and he was wearing white socks, and they're like really white. And I said, why are you wearing white socks? Like, we wear black socks. We're in the kitchen. We wear black socks in the kitchen. And I was thinking, like, what is he doing? I said, what color are your socks? White. I'm like, what do you wear white socks for? He's like, well, going my team, like, but why white? And I'm like, why? He's like, those are athletic socks. You wear white socks to go play games. And he's like, what? I'm like, white socks are to play games. I'm like, we're in the restaurant right now. We're here to be in business. So black socks are for business. And he looked at me and he was like, you're right. Like, black socks are a little bit more professional than white athletic socks. And then to this day, I'll see him. And what color socks is he wearing? He's wearing black socks. And, that was probably over 14 years ago. But it was, how do you dress at work? And we see these people grow up. So it ends up being like almost like, in a very loose sense, a parental relationship where you're teaching them the basics of life and of how to kind of really be professional and really impress at work, and also like how to frankly live your life sometimes, because in the restaurant industry, as we see a lot of people going through their most formative years, and if we really want to see them do the best, we have to give them the best advice that we know, and they can follow it or not. But it is this relationship where it's pretty special, because like you see them completely transform themselves from like, mid like 15, 16-year-olds to being 30-year-olds plus, and that's been their life. And now they're just doing great, but it's an interesting thing to watch in the restaurant business.
That is so, I've never thought of it that way. That is such again, I'm going to say this, the word, it's a beautiful thing that you've got to be able to be part of the person's growing up phase. Because I know for myself, that was, those were my growing up years, right? And then learning how to work with people and the rest of it. I wish I'd had someone like you that I'd worked with back in the restaurant, because again, I was more in the old school restaurant at that time, where you were basically being yelled at and you were just trying to work your way through it as best you can. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have a lot of good role models. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I don't have back into that. Like I have a few knives that have been thrown at me back in the day, and definitely was berated more than I ought to have been berated. And honestly, when I first kind of took over kitchens, like, nearing on 18 years ago, I like the first couple years of being a manager, I was terrible. I was the traditional kind of restaurant or chef. And, that's when, thank God, I was employed during those periods. Because, I think if I was a business owner, nobody would have worked for me. And I think that reputation would have gotten out, but I definitely had to learn how not to be like that, because there was a generational shift. I think it was actually honestly because of Gordon Ramsay, because Gordon Ramsay yelled at everybody on the shows, that everybody realized that maybe that wasn't the way, where the kitchens that I trained in were very, very similar to those restaurants. And being yelled at and berated wasn't uncommon. And you kind of go into work just hoping to do your best, but you wouldn't sleep the night before because you're so scared of screwing up. And that was in hotels as well. And, like I was at Lake Louise, and, I'll never kind of forget some of those, negative experiences. So I think as I kind of matured and finally realized that I didn't want to have people feel the way that I felt, that I needed to do something about that. So,
well, you've definitely done that, man. I'm tipping my hat off to you, because I also recall when I first got my designation as an accountant and then I became a partner, I was not a good business boss. I was not a good person to work for, because I was following, and really we're following what we've been trained. Like you think about it, we're conditioned creatures. We're conditioned to act a certain way. And so you and I, in the beginning, we acted like we were acted towards. So we just emulated that. You become that which you're around, but then you hit a point where you're like, this isn't right. It doesn't feel right. Right. And now it feels like you're in your own skin. You're in the right fit now because you're not pretending to be someone you're not. And the someone you are is a good person who wants only to serve others.
Mm.
And then and now when you can serve others, that's the greatest joy for me is when I can serve someone else, man, that's huge rewards right there. Yeah. So tell me, as we close up here on the podcast, Ross, can you tell me again the 4 businesses again and where they are and what they're doing so people know where to find you and
so the oldest one, which is turning 10 in a few days, is Broken Anchor Kitchen. And that's located at 2355 Gordon Drive. And with that, we have a catering department that operates in West Kelowna, but we operate everywhere in the Okanagan. But that's just Broken Anchor Catering, but it's a separate part of the company. Then we have Globe Cafe and Restaurant, which is located at Big White. And then we have Derrick Steakhouse, which is at 1560 Water Street in Kelowna.
Awesome. And so I have definitely had your catering because that's where you and I first met. You catered the MBA CPA Christmas party, and that was fantastic. And then I have definitely been to Globe because we've been up on the mountain. We go skiing all the time. I love it up there, and Globe is fantastic. I love the tapas. It's just a great way to have a little bit of food and sharing among people. I love that. And then I was at the open house with the Steakhouse, but I haven't been there for dinner yet. So I'm going to have to do that next time I come into Globe because I'm really excited about that. But I haven't been to Broken Anchor. I don't think I've been there yet. So I'm going to have to do that as well when I come into town. So.
Can't wait.
Awesome.
That's You're in Victoria, aren't you?
Yep.
Oh, that's going to be competitive fish and chip market there then.
Okay.
So
here's the question for you. What's next?
My wife says I can't open up another business for 2 years. We got married last year. So in the 4 years we've been together, I'll come in on 5, but the 4 years we've been together, she's seen me kind of switch from being kind of 1.5 businesses to 4 businesses. So I think she might need a bit of a rest on the constant change. But the reality is I do love Derrick's, and I would like Derrick's to be competitive on a national market, and I think it quite frankly could be. And I also think Broken Anchor could be. So there is some work we're going to be doing on the back end over the next few years, really perfecting what we do and what our projects are. Because I think that we have developed one really enjoyable places to work. And that culture is something that I'm really proud of, and I really want to make sure that it is the main focus. So with that, you just have to create a lot of documentation to make sure that those core values are really followed, and you have to kind of really have that set in the number 1 location. And I think that we offer a really great guest experience at both of those locations. So I think that in the long term, if I could say in 20 years, I hope I have more of both locations. I do think that they're really great brands that we've built, and we are looking to expand on that. So I'm hoping that within the next little while, we can really focus and create a plan to create multiple of these locations that still follow the core values that we have at this one location. I don't want to become a company that's built straight on profit, but also profit comes, I think, after if your employees are treated well, profit will be there. And that's one of my really big beliefs. But I think as we move forward, we create a brand and create multiple restaurants that are able to focus kind of on the employees first, create a wonderful experience that kind of is able to take over kind of that small little markets of high-end steak restaurant, steakhouse. It's a small market, but I think it's definitely room to be put in place to expand. So,
well, I'm looking forward to helping you get there. I would love to be part of that journey. So we'll be talking more about that going forward. I'd love to see Derrick's in multiple locations across Canada because I do a lot of traveling. So I would love to be able to hit a Derrick's Steakhouse in each one of those locations. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's the goal. You never know if it's going to happen, but you might as well set it out in the universe.
Let's do it. The universe is going to conspire to make it happen. I'm sure of that. I've seen it happen already. So, yeah, for sure, Ross. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, and let's do this again, okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks. If you're a business owner or CPA who believes the accounting profession has let you down, then please reach out to us at www.nbacpa.ca so we can have a chat to see if we're a fit to work together. We're always looking forward to talking to you. See you next time.